You are listening to the CAD Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The CAD Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the CAD Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am Jim, the good-looking one.
Oh, and I'm Rocco, but what makes you say you're the good-looking one? I think we should let our guest decide that.
No, because he's never seen us, and he's smart enough not to get involved in that argument.
Yeah, well, keep the camera.
There you go. Keep the cameras off. I don't blame him. So, all right. So let's welcome today's guest. We have Mr. Todd Rogers of Walter P. Moore back in the house with us today. Todd is the BIM manager for Walter P. Moore, and he's also on the board of directors over at Augie, as well as being one of the editors for Augie World Magazine. And he is probably my favorite guest here on the Cattle Call because we always get solid, no BS answers from Todd on any given topic. So, Todd, thanks for being here again.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me again.
It's always a pleasure. All right. So, for the benefit of our new listeners who haven't had the joy of listening to Todd before, why don't we let Todd tell you a little bit about himself before we get going? So, Todd, why don't you tell everybody, who you are and what you do and how you got to this amazing point in your illustrious career.
All right. Well, so, Jim, like you said, I'm a BIM manager for Walter P. Moore. Been there going on 3 years this March. I spent 16 years in production and left the production world for 10 years to work for a reseller for Autodesk, and enjoyed that quite a bit until the reseller business kind of took a tumble with the new business model Autodesk put out. So I went back into production, been there ever since. But I am an Autodesk Expert Elite, so I get a little bit of benefits from Autodesk, get to travel a little bit here and there. Minus the coronavirus days. So.
Yeah, that kind of limits the traveling for all of us.
Yeah.
It's no fun, no doubt. So, excellent. Okay, cool. So today, what we're going to talk about is we're talking about CAD standards. And we're going to talk about whether you should do it yourself or should you be looking to get a consultant. So, like I said, the idea of whether it's better to develop your own or, bring on a consultant to help with your projects. And look, obviously I have a definite opinion on this particular topic, but whenever I talk about it here on the show, everybody doubts me because they think that I'm biased in favor of the consulting options. And let's be honest, I am. Let's face it, hey, look, I'm a fat old man and I like to eat a lot, so I like people hiring us as their consultants so that, I can afford lunch. I can't buy the burgers unless you guys pay me. So, but to be fair, right? We always try to be fair here on the Cattle Call, which is why I'm throwing Todd into the mix today. I honestly don't know what Todd's opinion is here, and I'm counting on his usual, we'll call it directness in a polite way, to give us the good and the bad of each side of this particular topic. So, Todd, as you point out, right, you got a real long background in the CAD arena. Do you have a distinct preference on this question? I mean, do you lead towards developing your own in-house standards or working with a consultant? Which way do you lean and why?
Well, so going on my 28th year in the industry, I tend to lean toward the in-house. Sorry.
No problem. That's why you're here.
Right. The in-house just seems to work better for us, especially, a well-established company who has their own standards set already. So, bringing those up to date and having training and all that done and standardization within the companies tends to work better for that type of company opposed to outside the company because, you bring someone outside the company, they don't know your standards, right? So they have to, go through this whole rigmarole trying to learn what you do and all this stuff. And a lot of those consultancy places out there just have a standard, way of doing things, and it doesn't really cater to your company's needs.
Okay, that's a fair statement. That's a fair statement, and it really actually kind of ties into my own experience, right? It's I've seen that the path that people opt to take when they're developing their CAD standards is really very often determined by the size of the company that you're dealing with, and it does seem to me that the bigger the firm, right, the more likely they are to have experienced staff, right, like right. You in place needed to develop a solid set of standards is. As well as being able to kind of spare people like you, right? The more upscale guys with years and years of experience who really understand the company's needs, they're big enough and they're bringing enough revenue that they can spare you for a few weeks or even a few months, right? That it can take to kind of get your standards planned and built and vetted and then finally rolled out to your staff. And I'll agree. I think smaller firms. They tend to have their most skilled CAD design people wearing, multiple hats and juggling, a dozen different deadlines all at the same time. Right. And it really seems to me that they're the ones who are most likely to benefit from a consultant. Though I would argue with you, Todd, that even a large company can actually pull a lot of benefit. And at the very least, right, having a consultant review and make suggestions on those company standards that you've already built, right, even if you plan or have already done that work in-house. I think there's a benefit to having someone from the outside come in with fresh ideas and fresh eyes to kind of look at things that you take for granted.
Right. I wouldn't knock that at all, because there's always something that someone else can make notice or bring to the table that you might not have thought of.
Yep. Yeah, the more folks you get, more hands in that particular pot, the better that soup's going to be. Yes. So Todd, right, you work at Walter P. Moore, and it's one of the largest and most recognized structural civil firms in the world, really. I know you guys have like over 20 offices or more. I'm not sure. Do you know how many?
26.
26. Okay, in the U.S. So I'm guessing that you guys already have, right, extensive standards set up to work across such a widely diverse group. And I'm assuming, right, you built those all internally yourselves, or did you bring in consultants at all, or did you do a little bit of both? What was your process in getting that set up?
That was done before I got there. Okay. Of course, we built on it. Me coming in as an outsider, kind of like an outside consultant, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, those were built internally, and they were in place for quite a while and very outdated at the time. Now, to be honest with you, we are still in the progress. Well, it's an ongoing progress, isn't it? So,
it always is.
Yeah, exactly. Changing at times, you got to change everything from that to this, that to this. But yeah, everything was done internally, and again, it was out of date, and we've been working, nonstop the last 3 years that I've been there, getting these things in order and trying to get them right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, and you're absolutely right. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, that it is always a living, breathing thing. You're never, do the standards and done.
Yes.
So, Rocco, stop snoring over there. We're going to wake you up. So, on the Zentech end, right, we do a lot of consulting work, with people who are looking to develop their CAD standards. How do the people that you deal with, how do they break down in terms of company size and industry? Do you see that there are certain types of work, right, that need more support for standards than others, certain size companies, certain industries?
Size is a big factor. I mean, we definitely see the smaller firms who don't have the experienced staff, who don't have the staff doesn't have the time to work on it. So I think we definitely work with a larger majority of smaller firms. In terms of the areas, I think it's pretty much across the board. I mean, there's definitely a lot of civil firms that we work with, but architectural firms just as well. I think on the architectural side, a lot of times it's folks that are not yet on Revit, those that are still on AutoCAD, and really, kind of on the older versions of AutoCAD. So it's a little bit more of a struggle to kind of pull people up to the latest version of the products.
Right. Okay. That's fair. So I think another issue that comes into play when you're trying to make the choice between the in-house versus the consultant route. I think that there is some fear tied into that consultant process. I think, and it's just been my experience, right? The companies can worry that the consultants may, take control and start building and putting in place standards that don't really meet the company culture or your work process. Other people actually even I found that they get nervous that their own position might be threatened by an outside agency coming in and making changes. I have definitely run into, managers and execs who really do not like the idea of somebody like me coming in and changing what they've developed into something that's, quote unquote better, right? Because that might reflect poorly on what they spent years putting in place. And I definitely understand that. So Todd, what's your stance here? I mean, I know that you've been that go-to CAD design guy in the past. Do you have personal reservations about using other folks outside your firm to help with standard setup?
Do I personally? Absolutely not. I welcome anything that helps my company where I'm currently at. And it also helps me. Like I said, I've been doing this going on 28 years now, and I learn something new every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know everything by any means,
Only Rocco knows everything.
Rocco. Yeah, so I totally welcome that. I've actually been beating my head against the wall trying to get Eagle Point Pinnacle Series brought into the company to help us with some of this onboarding processes and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. And we're getting closer, I hope. We'll see within the next year. We should be having a meeting on this soon. But yeah, of course I welcome it. Absolutely.
That's fine. That's interesting. We actually we have Rocco and I have worked with the guys over at Eagle Point and Pinnacle for a lot of years. We know them all, and we've worked with all the owners and the execs over there for quite some time in a whole bunch of different ways. So it's funny to hear you say that. So
yeah, Jake took me out for beers one night when I met him, and that just went downhill from there.
Yeah, there you go. That's how they always get us. It's always the beers that do us in, man. That's how Rocco got me to be his partner. All right. So let's take a quick break here to listen to today's sponsor, whoever that may be. And then when we get back, I want to get into a bit of the actual CAD standard process that Todd's worked with, and kind of the whys and wherefores of why he did it that way. All right, so hang on, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the CAD Call Podcast. All right, Rocco, so we are sponsoring ourselves yet again today. What is it we want to talk about?
We're going to talk about me today, Jim.
No one wants to talk about you. Not even you.
Oh, fine. Let's talk about Zentech Tech Blocks.
Awesome. I like Zentech Tech Blocks. Zentech Tech Blocks are prepaid support hours that let you call on Zentech's experienced technical staff to address all your support questions, problems, help you with workflows and standards, really anything you need on the technology side. We're here to provide the support you need so that your most talented people aren't being dragged into helping everybody else in your company instead of working on the billable jobs that you need them focused on. All right, so Zentech Tech Blocks are available in multiple sizes. We sell them in 5-hour, 10-hour, 20-hour, and 40-hour prepaid support blocks. And if you're interested and you need that sort of help, Rocco, how do they reach out to us?
Yeah, hit up our website, zentechconsultants.net. Give us a ring, 866-824-4459, or even drop us an email, sales@zentechconsultants.net.
All right, Zentech Tech Blocks, the vital support that your people need exactly at the moment that they need it. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cattle Call Podcast. We're talking with Todd Rogers from Walter P. Moore today to get his thoughts and concerns on the topic of CAD standards and the best way to get those developed and implemented in your firm. In the first half, we were talking about the kind of the pros and cons of doing the in-house versus the consulting method to get those standards rolling. And I think in this segment, I want to talk more about the actual process that a large firm like Walter P. Moore went through, or may still be going through, or even the companies that you may have worked with in the past, all right, to kind of get standards in place. So, Todd, at what level are you involved with the standards development at your company these days? I mean, is this something that you guys have fully developed and kind of put to bed, or is it an ongoing process? Or you have somebody fully dedicated to it? How are you guys dealing with it?
Yeah, so I'm actually one of the head members of the CAD Standards Committee at the office with my CAD manager, Maywash Abbas. One of the best CAD managers I've ever worked with in my life. She is fantastic. Um, Fully developed and put to bed would be a dream for me.
That's a dream for us all.
Yes, an ongoing project, absolutely. I mean, it's never going to stop, to be honest with you, because the industry changes constantly. The software changes constantly. So what happens with the standards? They're going to be changing constantly as well. However, there are those, certain types of standards that shouldn't change. For example, a set of plans. We have worked so hard this last 3 years for the infrastructure department at Walter P. Moore to get all the plans that go out the door to look the same, right?
Yep.
That's very important. Instead of the Kansas City office or the Austin or Dallas office, sending out a set of plans and it looking like it comes from the Kansas City office or the Dallas or Austin office. It looks like a Walter P. Moore office, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we were striving for. And we have almost reached the pinnacle there, but there's still work to be done.
Yeah, and that is a really important. Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. That's something I've worked towards at a lot of the companies I've been with, and the idea that the final presented output that you're developing from those cancer, it's part of your corporate branding. It's how people identify you. You work with a good company, and you can just pick up a set of plans that you didn't even look at the title block, and you go, "Oh, I know who did that." Right?
Yep.
It really is part of it, and that's the ideal goal, and that's where you want to get. And like I said, those are immutable standards, right? How the final product looks, that can't change. It's got to be consistent across the setup. So that's a real important aspect.
It's very important.
No doubt. All right, so one of the hardest things that we have here at Zentech trying to get across to the clients that we work with is that there isn't always a one size fits all kind of answer for their CAD standards. Not across different companies and industries certainly, but as you were just kind of saying, right? Not even within the same company, right? There are a lot of firms now that are multidiscipline, right? Which means kind of maintaining a completely different set of standards for each one of your business segments, right? Yep. But they still need to integrate and work together and still put out that final product that is identifiable as coming from Walter P. Moore or whatever company our listeners are working for. And that is no small task to undertake, right? Particularly when your project lead may be an expert in one field, right, and a novice in another when you're a multidiscipline firm. So let's take Walter P. Moore, right? You guys are noted for structural and civil, and I know that nowadays you're heavily into the BIM design world. How have you handled the structure of your CAD and BIM design standards for these different groups? I mean, are you guys working with kind of one big standard, or do you have multiples? And how do you integrate all of those together?
Yeah, that's a tough question.
We like to ask the tough ones here. That's why we do this.
That's a good one. So as it is right now, BIM is kind of new for the infrastructure guys, as y'all well know. Mm-hmm. So we've kind of watched how other people are handling it and kind of implemented that into how we're handling it. As far as the structural team, so we have a structural and a diagnostics team. The structural team kind of has their own thing going, and it's been set in stone for quite a while. We are just recently starting to, go together, to integrate those. And it's a process that has not been started yet. It's coming, but yeah, it's pretty much the infrastructure group, the structural group, and the diagnostics group as it is now. Now, as far as a set of plans that go out, we send our own plans out. They send their own plans out. So we've really not had a big opportunity to come together and integrate, heavily yet, but it's coming, obviously. So, yeah. So that's something.
It is vital. I think it's a really vital process. As I said, so many times when we get involved with people, right, we get into a company and you're seeing that, one group is storing files on SharePoint and another guys are using internal servers, and then some guys use XREFs and some guys are doing shared central models and other guys are doing, blocks that they save back. There's a million different sets of tools and ways and processes that can really throw off and lose you a lot of time when that's not all kind of thought out.
Yes, exactly.
So, when you get somebody who doesn't know how to use the... Whoops, sorry, I spoke over you on that one. What was that?
Okay, thank goodness for BIM 360, right?
Yeah, there you go. The tools that help you get everything centralized. It really is. It's all about, getting everybody on the same page to find the right files and the right info at the right time. So
that's right. And I imagine that's what Autodesk had in mind when this past, the 9th of this week, they pushed out BIM 360 docs for all the AEC collection holders. Yep.
They're making massive pushes in the file collaboration and sharing and workflow process, not just on the design side, but on the construction side as well. And I think that's brilliant. That's how you corner a market. Not that I'm a huge fan of cornering the market or the monopolies or the great hegemony, but I get where they're going, and it's a smart play.
I do. Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So Rocco, let's bring you back in here. So what about on the Zentech side with our clients? Do we find it, when you're talking to them, are they usually looking for a single standard, or are they looking to develop multiple standards, kind of for, different set of standards for each group, and then find a way to integrate them?
I think they're open to what we say. I mean, it's hard to get everybody to agree, like you guys are saying, on a set platform. So it all depends on the environment, but I think that what makes it more difficult, and I think Todd, you would agree, is if you have environments where folks are way behind on the technology, it just makes it harder and harder with every release that goes by to get everybody on the same page and to establish standards that are going to work for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's nothing worse than having one group in the office on the latest version, and another one 6 releases back, where you can't even effectively share each other's data. That'll kill any process. So there you go. If the folks listen and take nothing away, take what Rocco just said to heart. Make sure that and I'll even go so far as you don't have to be on the latest and greatest version of your software. But please, for the love of all that's sacred out there, put everybody on the same version. That's all we ask.
Oh man!
Otherwise, you're just looking for nightmares. All right. So, one of the hardest things that I find anyway to get across to people when I'm doing any type of standards consulting for them is that there is... And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's no possible way to do a one-and-done approach to a standards project, right? And just like Todd was saying earlier, right? Design processes, the software, even like we're talking about, file storage and communication options. They change every day, and they change so quickly in the modern world. There needs to be a plan in place within your company for continuing development and adjustment to any standard that you build. Look, as the consultants, I get it that people tend to think I'm trying to get more work for myself when I tell them that. But I swear it's true. I'm not kidding you, folks. CAD standards are a living, breathing process. Right? And like I use when I talk to people, tell them it's the difference between buying a whole bunch of tomatoes at the store or planting tomatoes in your garden. Right? Both ways, you're going to get some tomatoes to eat. But if you aren't planting and tending the garden, all your tomatoes are just going to rot and go bad after a while. They're not going to be very tasty. Right? Same thing with your CAD standards. If you're not constantly tending them and growing them and adjusting them, they just become rotten and start to lose you money instead of make you money. So Todd, how do you both you personally and at Walter P. Moore, how do you address long-term development and planning for CAD standards? Do you address the changes only when somebody points out a need, or do you kind of have an ongoing process for updates? And why did you choose whatever method you're using, and how do you feel it's working?
So at the moment, the way we're going about the long-term development is having these committees. So we get in these committees and we brainstorm these ideas. We discuss with people that are in production environment, banging the keyboard hard every day, and they tell us, well, this is working, this isn't working, how do we go about making this easier? And then, of course, we take it from there and try to iron it out. The process for updates, now that's something we're trying to bang out as well. On our end, we're trying to develop a standard for that. As it is now, it's working fine. It could be better, though. And of course, anything could be better. Mm-hmm. But we're working toward, right now we're skipping a version, so we'll be upgrading this year to 2022.
Okay.
Thank goodness it's still on the 2018 drawing format, so we're good there. But that, that always throws a wrench in there, especially with all the Civil 3D users, because you go to one version, the next year, and it's not backward compatible. So right. They've been stretching that backward compatibility out more and more, which is fabulous because it helps so much with our clients and consultants. But yeah, it's working fairly well for us right now. There's always room for improvement there, and always looking for better ideas and research. I'm constantly on the web researching different methods and, listening to different people, like Donnie Gladfelder's a great resource to, because he just got top speaker at AU 2020. R.K. McSwain, all those guys have such good knowledge of CAD management and standards. It's good to get their take on these things.
Yep. Now, there's a lot of great folks at that. I throw Robert Green into that mix as well. Robert's a recurring,
yes, absolutely.
He's a recurring guest here on the show, and I was a big fan of his for many years before I even met him. So, but yeah, finding those folks out there and following them is great. One of the things that I really did like about what you were just saying, and I think is absolutely brilliant and vital to anybody who's listening, is that your committees are not just made up of executives and managers. That's the biggest mistake I see, right? People, these are the guys in charge. They're going to make the decisions. Well, that's great. They don't do the daily work. They don't know the technology, and they don't know where the pain points are that need to be addressed. They get the magic print at the end and goes, oh, look at everything we did. It worked beautifully. They didn't hear the cursing and the screaming and the guy sitting in there at 2 a.m. kicking the trash can over because his computer froze again. You got to have both levels, and it's hard to get a lot of companies to do it because there seems to be a big divide here in the U.S. between management and worker. And for building a standard to do something like this, you really do need to blend them both. You need both aspects because the guys at the bottom, they're focused on the micro stuff. You know what I mean? They're like, this is a problem. This got to be fixed. And the guys on the other side, they're focused on the money and where are we going to benefit and is it worth the time and investment? And you got to blend that to get the right answer. So I think it's a great concept of what you guys are doing there. So I like that. So, okay. Awesome. All right. So I actually think that kind of covers most everything we wanted to talk about on the CAD standard ends of things for today. So I want to thank Todd for being here once again. The man's brave enough to keep coming back even after multiple visits to this podcast, and we appreciate that. Heck, let's face it, right? Even our wives don't even want to talk with us as much as Todd does. So we do appreciate your being here, Todd, and we hope you will continue to keep coming back. You're a fantastic guest.
Thanks again for having me, guys. I always enjoy speaking with you guys. Y'all are top notch, and I look forward to it again.
Outstanding.
Thank you, Todd.
All righty, folks. So with that, Rocco and I and Todd are all out of here, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast. All right, everybody. Today's Cattle Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from you all.